Hey folks, this is Kelani, bringing you a location guide for crafting the first tier of fine crafting materials. Now this should include Vial of Weak Blood, Bone Chip, Tiny Claw, Tiny Fang, Tiny Scale, Tiny Totem and Tiny Venom Sac. Now, one thing that I will note is that in World v World, all the monsters there will drop level equivalent fine crafting materials, depending on the monster. So the scales there will drop blood of an appropriate level to what you are, so if you're really low, it'll be weak, if you're a bit higher, thin, etc, etc, etc. One other thing to note here is that Tiny Fangs, if you are desperate for them, I would go into World v World. I would target the Raptors there, any of the monsters which drop a fang. Personally, I would try and avoid them completely. They are not worth the time, they are not worth the effort, in my personal opinion. I have not yet found a decent enough farming location for the drop to be at least worth the time. If I need fangs, I buy them. It's got to that point. So if you do need fangs, I would recommend going to World v World. The rest, however, I do have a nice farming location for. So we'll get right to that, and I'll do them in this order, preferably, except Tiny Totems, because the location for those is actually shared with Bone Chip. So without further ado, I will leave you a nice list at the side so you can skip to whichever fine crafting material you require, if you do require one specifically. Okay, so first up we'll be looking at Vials of Weak Blood. Now for my bloods I usually look towards Skale, and there is a nice array of Skale just in this small area. This is in Queensdale, just below Skaver Plateau. You can take the Skaver waypoint and head down. Now, for me personally, I know Vials of Blood have definitely had a decent drop rate on Scale, and I usually find farmable Scale of the appropriate level for for blood, really. Scale definitely seem to have one of the better drop rates. So this is going to be a case of kill. There we go. Vial of Weak Blood. Excellent. There is an event which may be on, may not be, for these scale eggs. I mean, you can collect them if you really want to, but if you're here just for the blood, it's no worries just poking a few scale and seeing if you can collect any of their delicious blood, even though it seems to be a little bit on the weak side. As you can see, the drop rate is pretty decent. There's quite a few scale here. I mean, there's a couple in the water if you do run out, and there is a couple drakes back there if you run out completely.
This should satisfy the great lord.
Well, that's the eggs done.
That was a great batch of poached eggs. I'll have to make some more when I have extra eggs again.
Anyway, on to the next crafting material. So, when I need tiny bones or tiny totems, this is usually my port of call. This is located in the Norn starting area. Just this little area. Just southeast of the Norn capital. So what you want to find is Grawl Fjord waypoint, and the cave here. You can see I've been around it a few times. This is basically where I'll end up. So what we're hunting is Grawl. Now it'll take you a couple runs to learn the spawn locations, but most of them are pretty straightforward. There you go, bone chip right off the bat. Now these do drop bone chips and tiny totems. Some of them, I believe, also drop tiny claws. That seems to be a great deal rarer, and we'll head somewhere else for those. They also drop the supply packs. Now, with the recent changes, you'll probably actually end up with more butter than anything else, but there's still a small chance there. So there are a couple of packs of Grawl. Not too many of them, but it's usually okay. They usually spawn. Like you can usually constantly circuit this cave due to the spawn rate. Obviously depends on how many people are here, but it's usually pretty quiet. So fairly small cave, but you know, fairly quickly to clear out, and then usually we would have the mob spawning there again and then come back around again for this one. It's a little messed up due to someone else being in there while I was outside and then coming out and killing things, but if you do end up running in a group, that should make it even quicker, as long as you go in a group and not all willy-nilly all over the place. So that should cover any bone chips or tiny totems that you are looking for. It's a bit of an awkward one to get to if you're not known yourself, and if you do end up running out, there are a couple more hunters just south. You can see we've finally got the respawn back, so hope that one sorts you out for tiny totems and bone chips. We'll have a look elsewhere, as I say, for tiny claws. These don't seem to be a good enough, I guess, spawn rate. So, onward. So, when you're looking for some tiny claws, the ones you want to be looking for are usually drakes. Now, drakes seem to have a decent drop rate. Claws and fangs definitely seem to be the black sheep in the family. It's a little awkward trying to find something to farm usually for these. Quite a lot of the ones with claws or fang are underwater, and we all know underwater can be a little bit of a pain, but this little area has a huge amount of river drakes. So while the drop rate may not be amazing, there's at least plenty to farm. Now, that's this area here, just near the Eastern Divinity Dam. You probably want to take Ojon's lumber mill waypoint and head north. There are a few juvenile river drakes here as well, so do bear in mind that you cannot kill everything, sadly. But hopefully you will get at least a decent amount for your time worth. I know I actually try and avoid farming claws and fangs as much as I can. If I need them desperately, I usually go to World v World, as they are far easier to find. The spawn rate seems definitely quicker, and I mean the only real danger of farming in World v World is getting ganked by people or people screaming at you to actually kill someone. Which, of course, it's always nice to help out your realm, but if you're there for the farming, you're there for the farming. See if we can gather a few. Might make it a little bit quicker. Oh, missed. And we tethered a few of them, but never mind. As I say, claws and fangs are the black sheep, really, of the crafting materials. You're better off trying to not farm them and go for something else. But if you are looking for claws, here is a nice area for you. These drakes actually drop tiny scales as well. Obviously not an amazing drop rate, but they do drop. There we go, tiny claw. Wasn't lying. So, next on the list is tiny scales. Now for this one, what we're going to be looking for is these little beggars. Skritt. As you can see right off the bat, a nice tiny scale. Got the event going on, so there's also data cores, which may fill up your inventory. But that's not too bad. We can always turn them in for a few brownie points. So this area is in Caledon Forest, and we're in the ruins of the unseen. Now, the quickest way would probably take map and waypoint and head up. As you can see, I've been here for a round or two so far, and drop rate's been okay. It's not been amazing, but it's definitely better than anywhere else I've found. Well, I do seem to be having some strange lag, but we can work through it. The best thing about this is actually the amount of mobs and the respawn rate. Now, if you can't actually handle it, the respawn rate may go against you, but if you're able to knock them down without much problem, then you'll be happily filling your bags with whatever these Skritt decide to drop. So, the other thing these Skritt drop is actually bone chip. Now, it's not as often, I guess. I mean, at least for if I was going bone chips, I wouldn't use this area. So that's the kind of drop rate you'd be getting on bone chips. You know, subpar at best, really. So, I mean, it may be useful if you're looking for tiny scales and tiny. Bone chips instead of the bone chips and tiny totems, which is what the other location is. If you're looking for materials just to farm to sell, I'd recommend the other area. A, it'd be quieter. B, if you are on your own, or if you're in a large enough group, you'll be able to kill things constantly, so there's no worries there. And the drop rate is higher, definitely for the bone chips. Yeah, I mean you'd get more fine crafting materials. This is just basically tiny scales and a bonus if you get any bone chips. So that's in the ruins of the unseen. Once again, if you do run out of things to kill, however unlikely, there is actually a nice field of fireflies in case you wish to collect any tiny Venom sacs. So there's always that. So when it comes to farming tiny Venom sacs, I'll always come to Caledon Forest. Now this is right up in the top left location of Caledon Forest. There is a nice waypoint here, but what you'll be looking for is these mosquitoes. Now they also have mosquito larvae, which you can happily squish to make them nice and angry. And they're pretty easy to kill. So there's a good deal of these around here. As you can see, it should probably wait for cooldowns, but it should be fine. They can do a little bit of damage. Oh, got some stray trolls to deal with. We'll get onto those in a little while. As you can see, a nice amount of tiny Venom sacs. Obviously you want to watch out for this champion troll if he does show his face to you. But the other part that you can venture into is just south of here. If you do run out of any mosquitoes to kill, as there are fireflies there which also drop the tiny Venom sacs. So that's it for my farming locations. As you can see, we managed to pick up a couple of materials. Not a great many, but I didn't spend an awful long time at each location. So I hope this helped anyone looking for these first craft materials. It does definitely help to get the crafting off to a flying start. If you have any questions or queries, please leave them in the comment section below. If you have your own farming locations and wish to share, please leave those in the comments below as well. Sharing is caring. Helping anybody watching these videos is what these videos are designed for, and I hope they do exactly that. You helping me to help others would help everybody. Excellent. Have fun, guys, and as always, I'll see you next time. I mean, I may be completely wrong about this, but But if I'm right, then I may have saved us both a lot of gold, or silver or copper, depending on what we're using. Oh,